All right, so I'm really, really honored to be gifted today with the time of Bair, who is the founder and one of the lead people, core people at Secret Network, which is a privacy-focused project, also now within the Cosmos ecosystem. But it has a long track record and implements a lot of cool things in the near future that we're going to be looking forward to, such as IBC, for example. But yeah, before we get into all these things, Tor, thank you so much. You must be crazy busy right now. How is everything going on your side?
Crazy busy. I mean, you said it. It's exciting, though. We have a lot of things happening, like you said, at the protocol level with IBC and Supernova, and a lot of things happening at the application level. So we're at that exciting inflection point for an ecosystem where attention turns from building the foundation to just building the rest of the house. So that's always my favorite part, because that's when you onboard all the users, and that's what I care about.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people really, really interested to kind of like have a protocol, a DeFi protocol, also cryptocurrency that is truly private, right? I think it has been quite difficult for other projects to kind of like stick to that vision, but you guys seem to be on the right track here, and you also seem to have a long track record that reaches back, I think, all the way to 2015, 2016, also then with the creation of Enigma. So maybe we can start off with, that you can share a little bit of the origin story of a Secret, and then also kind of like how it's tied or how it's kind of like connected to Enigma.
Yeah. The origin story of Secret does stretch back all the way to 2015. And at the time, I was a graduate student at MIT, and I was very fortunate to be there at exactly the right time. Looking back, obviously you can say that, but it was the first time MIT was offering blockchain courses. They were incubating the Bitcoin core developers. So if you cared about this technology, if you cared about the evolution of its ecosystem, it was really the best place to be. It was really the epicenter of a lot of research and a lot of innovation. And one of those innovations was the Enigma white papers. And those were written at MIT in 2015 by Guy Ziskind. He was the Enigma CEO, and he's also one of the people who taught that first blockchain course. So just to make sure you understand the distinction, I was taking that course. He was teaching that course. I got to be there and be the benefit of a lot of the great research that was going on. And, Guy got to actually do the research. So that research led to the white papers. The first white paper related to the project was decentralizing privacy. It was an idea of combining decentralized privacy technologies with a decentralized blockchain to create a decentralized privacy preserving computation platform for all sorts of different use cases. And this was 2015. So the paper is concentrating on like using Bitcoin, for example. There was no like Ethereum mainnet. There was none of these other, layer one blockchains that we see today. Because that paper was written so far ahead of its time, it's now one of the most highly cited papers in the entire blockchain space. I think that it has on its own either like somewhere between 1,500, 2,000 citations, something crazy. And then the next paper that was written was the Enigma white paper, which went into a good deal of more detail about what an implementation could look like. Out of that came really the entire project. The project always had the same vision. How do we create a privacy preserving computation platform that is decentralized, permissionless? And Enigma started by building out a layer 2 solution for Ethereum that was going to be for private compute. And what that evolved into eventually was a layer 1 blockchain, a sovereign chain, where every smart contract running on the network would have privacy by default. You could use encrypted inputs, encrypted outputs, encrypted state for all of these contracts, but they would still have their composability. They would still have their interoperability. We really didn't get to that point in the project, even though we began so long ago. That layer 1 didn't launch on mainnet until February of 2020. And then the private smart contract functionality was only really implemented in September of last year. So it really is recent history. But even with that said, it's been over a year now where Secret has had privacy preserving smart contracts on mainnet. And it's still, as far as I'm aware, the only mainnet layer 1 independent blockchain with generalizable privacy preserving smart contracts on mainnet. So even though it feels like it took that long, and even though it feels like it's only a recent innovation, it's still a year plus head start on pretty much any other ecosystem. And that definitely has benefits not only to us, but to the entire cosmos, because we built on Tendermint. And now with IBC coming in, hopefully this month of October, There's always things that can happen, but hopefully by the end of October, we're at least making the proposal to mainnet that Supernova will be implemented, that will do the hard fork. I mean, that's the next big exciting step, because now everything we've done on privacy becomes available to the entire cosmos.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think, another thing that you guys have that is really hard for others to also catch up into kind of like have is a lot of secret agents, a lot of a very active and loyal and really kind of like a community that really stands behind your vision, stands behind the project, and is really, really excited about it. But I wanted to get back to that little thing that you said, which was that you were in that class and you were taught about this idea and vision. What was it that got you hooked back then? Because I think back then, like privacy itself, I mean, kind of like the whole crypto space with Bitcoin originally came from this cypherpunk movement. Replace the government, very liberal, almost anarchic, right? So what was it kind of like that got you hooked about this privacy feature in the first place?
I mean, everything is evolutionary, right? But I'm the kind of person, like many people in our ecosystem, I'm the kind of person who likes problems and finding them and solving them before other people even know that they're problems. Because if you start building something that takes 4 years to build, and then you start building it 4 years too early, eventually you're right on time, which is where we find ourselves now. So when I first started learning about blockchain as a technology beyond just like Bitcoin as a speculative asset, right? I'm very open with the idea that like I started thinking of Bitcoin purely as a speculative asset. I came from the options trading world. I loved volatility. I loved things that moved too much for no reason. But by the time I got to MIT and started looking into it more closely, it definitely became a more tangible technology than just like a speculative asset class. So there was already an evolution there from thinking this is a way to make money to this is a way to build better technology. A lot of my graduate research was on how to use blockchain for digital rights management, for example. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time that I had done research where the net result was, okay, privacy is going to be an issue. You can have all of this information. You can run it in a decentralized network to ensure like artist payments are done in a timely fashion, right? Like I was looking at royalties and automated royalties, which have now finally been implemented in the NFT world, but still without privacy, right? You couldn't necessarily protect any nature of the ownership of those assets or any nature of the payments. And that has, real consequences in the traditional world, and it's a huge security and usability risk. So I became aware of the problem only because I was looking so closely at other different parts of the stack. And I wasn't like radicalized. There's no way to be radicalized for me into an idea like privacy, because like I just think it's a human right. I think it also is what enables all commerce, all communication, all social development, is the ability to say, this is mine and not yours. Everybody really wants that right to be able to say, this is for me to see, but not for you. And if I choose to show it to you, it's my choice. That idea of consent and choice, as opposed to something authoritarian where somebody can force you to do something against your will, claiming it's for the greater good, but really it's for theirs, right? Like I have far greater trust in democratic institutions that also enable people to be leaders of their own fortunes. Privacy just seemed like a huge part of that, but so did blockchain. And when I realized privacy couldn't exist really without decentralization, you can't have privacy solutions without having them be decentralized in some way, be like user owned in some way. But you also can't have usable decentralized technologies unless you can also secure users' privacy. Once I realized that these two ideas were inseparable in terms of creating usable solutions that really protected people, that weren't just going to lead to surveillance dystopias, it was very easy for me to get excited about privacy at the same time as decentralization. It just took the rest of the world probably an extra 4 years to realize the depth of that problem. And I was just fortunate enough to land with Enigma at a time when they needed somebody to help push them forward on solving that problem. Like it's a lot of luck to be able to be in the only place in the world like MIT where they've identified the problem 4 years ahead of everybody else. That's the only reason I even knew that there was a way to solve it, or the only reason I knew there were other people I could solve it with. It's I wish I could claim more foresight, but really it's just, if you're in the right place at the right time, when people become aware of a problem, then you're in the best position to solve it.
No, and it feels like at least also that it's all coming together now. So that seems like the last couple of 5-6 years actually have really paid off and are now showing the fruits of that. But it's funny because in 2019, I met Ricardo Spagni, who's the lead developer at Monero, and I asked him that exactly the same question. Like, man, why do you care? Why do you work on Monero? Like, what fascinates you about that? And his answer was very similar to yours, which was because I believe money should be private. It should be, you know, at least people should have the choice. Like, if they want to like not share their data, whatever, they can do it or they cannot do it. Like, it should be their choice. And I think building the technology for that, I think, makes a lot of sense. But it also seems that it's incredibly hard to realize that, right? Not just on a technical level, I think that's one thing, but also on a legal level, right? Because we're also talking about kind of like data protection. We're talking about also, you know, governments, they don't like that idea typically. I mean, in the first place, they also don't like the idea of Bitcoin, which is not really kind of
governments. Yeah, governments love privacy. You know, like that's the thing people get wrong. Governments love privacy. They just don't love your privacy.
Yeah, true. But so how does it work? Or like, I don't know, like how do you guys try to kind of like build a product that is private and that also touches upon legislation, all these kind of things? What is kind of like the approach here? Is it really hard for you guys, or do you just what's the process here?
Here's where it gets a little interesting, because we do have a very different approach from a project like Monero or a project like Zcash, where the primary use case really does revolve around privacy preserving transactions, which is a narrow use case for a blockchain, but the original use case for a blockchain, right? The evolutionary stream is we had Bitcoin, you know, kind of the granddaddy of all cryptocurrencies in the modern age. And then that evolved on one side into smart contract platforms, on the other side into things like Monero that was like Bitcoin, but with privacy. And now we've combined those streams again into saying we have privacy, we have smart contracts, and it's data privacy for the smart contracts. When you're at layer one like that, and you're telling people we're enabling a completely new design space for private by default applications, what we're trying to say is, if you want to have no privacy controls for your application, you can do that on Secret Network. Just make everything public. But if you want to have total privacy controls for your application, build it on Secret, make everything totally private. And then in between, all those gray areas that can't exist on other blockchains can exist on Secret. That's what we refer to as programmable privacy. So when it comes to talking about regulation and legislation, I believe that all of that should be at the application layer, not at the network layer. In the same way that I don't believe that we should have backdoors into encryption in messaging products or things like that, because what ends up happening is, even if you think only the government is going to use that backdoor, you're already wrong. Like, obviously, any malicious entity in the world is going to be looking for that backdoor and looking to exploit it. And the more security gaps you create in any application, and you say it's only for the use of a particular party, eventually it's going to be used by somebody for a purpose that you didn't intend. So when you weaken things at the protocol level, the foundational thing that application developers are relying on to be secure, to be private and stable, and you say, you know, at layer one, we need this level of public by default transparency, all you're doing is weakening the security and the usability of everything that gets built upon that layer. But on Secret, for example, you could build an application where you say, okay, once you're in the application, everything is private by default. All the data is secure. You don't have to worry about it leaking. But to use the application, there is some sort of whitelisting or verification process, right? So if you're some sort of traditional institution that wants to use a financial application on Secret, but you need to be only with other trusted parties, but also you don't want to leak your data to those trusted parties, only Secret can allow you to build that type of application on top of it in a way that's both usable and secure. You can't do it on Ethereum. You have the transparency you need to know that you're interoperating with a trusted party, but you don't have the privacy you need to protect the data you're bringing into that application universe. And if you're using a private only sort of network, right, you're just sending private money to somebody else, eventually you run out of ways to certify that this other party is trusted in some way. So the point being, we're trying to be in that gray area of the design space, because that's, 99.999% of the design space where all the real value gets unlocked, where not only is it compliant, it's better. Like, the Ethereum ecosystem and every public by default blockchain universe is rife with issues like front running, which in the real world is illegal. But in Ethereum is just, a fun technical problem to solve that costs billions of dollars to users. On Secret, we're front running resistant by default because the miners can't see the transactions before they're actually executed. It's all executed in secrecy. So we actually think we have better regulatory solutions, better solutions for people who are concerned with compliance. But because the word privacy is involved, which I stuck on the hat, because the word privacy is involved and people only think of things like, like money laundering, secret money, that's where we have just more of an educational issue. But as soon as I talk with, people who work in the compliance departments or regulators about these issues, and I explain our approach to this from a design perspective, they start to understand not only why what we're doing is good, but why what public by default blockchains are doing is really, really bad.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, and you already mentioned briefly Monero. I think Monero is kind of like the world's most known privacy coin out there. Also in terms of market cap, it has one of the largest communities out there in crypto as a whole.
Oh yeah,
and also lots of kind of like use cases. Can you maybe separate or segregate a little bit between what Monero tries to resolve and how they resolve it, also in a little bit of a technical layer? I think they use something like ring signatures, right? And then what Secret tries to become as kind of like the next step in the evolution of privacy coins or projects.
Yeah, I mean, I explained it as an evolution, but really it's just two projects trying to do different things, right? Bitcoin tries to solve something, Ethereum tries to solve something, Monero tries to solve something, and Secret is trying to solve something totally different, right? Monero is very concentrated on solving the private transaction use case. And if you try to do too many things on top of that, you end up making other trade-offs that compromise that core use case. So they're very concentrated on being exactly that, for better or worse. It could be better from a strictly privacy-focused perspective and a decentralization perspective. Like, things are more private or more decentralized on Monero than they might be in other ecosystems because of that focus. But also as a result of that focus, they open themselves up to a lot of pressure from governments and things of that nature. Also, there's an extremely high bar for them to retain that privacy for their users because it's the entirety of their value proposition to a user of Monero. So if they ever have that privacy broken, it's now useless forever, right? Because that was their only differentiator. So it's just a very different project from Secret, but they do and can interoperate. So for example, somebody in our community built a bridge to Monero. Now that allows you to take your Monero over the bridge into Secret network as a wrapped Secret version of Monero, and then you can send it back over the bridge to become Monero again. So what that allows you to do is take your Monero, bring it into the Secret DeFi ecosystem, use it in applications, trade it, stake it, whatever, send it back over the bridge. That's a private by default ecosystem connecting to a private by default ecosystem. So now you get sort of that end-to-end security. Whereas when we bridge to Ethereum, for example, Ethereum is a public by default network. Anytime you're interacting with the bridge on Ethereum, you're doing something publicly to the entire world. Our concern is just to make sure that what happens while you're on Secret network is happening with security, is usable, connects you to every other network in the world. Ideally, that was the whole point of building on Cosmos Tendermint and having IPC, was to have that level of interoperability. Monero doesn't care fundamentally at the protocol level about interoperability. They care about being Monero, establishing a baseline level of privacy for everything that would happen on that network, with the understanding that every additional network Monero touches increases the attack surface for that privacy or reduces the guarantees you would get on the network. So the Monero community, there's really two sides of it. Well, there's, hundreds of sides to it, but there's the side that is extremely privacy focused with no compromise on any front, the extreme cypherpunks. And then there's the side of it where it's they value privacy as an ethos, but they're more open-minded about the types of solutions that Monero could interoperate with, or the value of other privacy solutions in the blockchain ecosystem. And you see this in every ecosystem. There's Bitcoin maximalists, and then there's people who are curious about things like Ethereum, Solana, Cosmos, Terra, Secret, etc. These are not, if you don't think of them as evolutions, they're at least different experiments, and you're open-minded enough to think of them as potentially workable. I think the Secret ecosystem, the Secret agents, are full of very open-minded people. I don't think we have a lot of Secret maximalists. I think we just have a lot of people who recognize what we're trying to do is very, very different from what any other project has tried to do to date.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think Sunny coined this term with me that he's also a Bitcoin maxi, but a maxi in a sense as in maximizing the value of Bitcoin, which means you can offload it onto other networks like Cosmos, and you can have it interoperable. You can put it in DeFi protocols, and you can also put it into something like Secret, right? So we're going to talk about the Shinobi bridge in a second. But before we do, share a little bit more about the Cosmos. You already mentioned it. You like the interoperable nature of it. So at what point did you guys stumble upon Cosmos, and when did you say, hey, we got to launch our chain on Cosmos, and we have to go and get IBC implemented? When did that happen?
Well, once we realized that the best long-term vision for what we were trying to do with privacy was to have a sovereign chain model with interoperability rather than be strictly a layer 2 for Ethereum. And this was like in early 2020. People weren't sure how the ETH 2.0 transition was going to work out. There was plenty of uncertainty in March of 2020 and February of 2020 for many, many other reasons, right? Like including a global pandemic and including a global market crash. But we looked at the long term and we were thinking, the sovereign chain model is the way to go. And at the time, there were really only two viable options for the sovereign chain model. One was to go and explore Tendermint, and the other was to go and explore Substrate in the Polkadot universe. And the sovereign chain model, that value proposition in Cosmos, felt a lot stronger than the sort of hub and spoke model in Polkadot, where things were just going to have to run through the center of the whole universe, rather than allowing Secret to sort of establish itself and have its own bridges and have its own relevance, finding other solutions to shared security over time. The other reason, of course, is that I think Tendermint was something like, 18 to 24 months ahead of time of anything that was a timeline in the Substrate universe. Like, there's still no live mainnet parachains. There's still like everything on testnet and the auctions and everything. And I mean, that's a good thing for them. This is extremely complex technology. You want it to work. You have to test it. Everything in crypto is essentially untested at the levels that it would need to be tested to secure a global economy. So they're testing it, and that's really good. But for our purposes, knowing we wanted to be right place, right time, when everybody realized that privacy was a critical solution, we had to start sooner, not later. So we've been on mainnet, as I said, now for a year and a half. If we were in the Substrate universe, we would still be waiting our turn. So instead, we get to have this incredible community, all of this incredible usage, etc. So that's what drew us to Tendermint for sure. But obviously, the other thing that drew us to it was just the community of developers behind it, the people who were developing CosmWasm at Confio, all of the incredible people from organizations like Kepler and All in Bits and Interchain. Like, it's just been really wonderful to be able to collaborate with people who take at least a portion of our mission even more seriously than we do, that interoperability vision, right? Like, we think we take privacy more seriously than anybody else when it comes to like that smart contracting layer vision. And I think that the Tendermint ecosystem and the people who support it as a technology and as an ecosystem care more about interoperability than any other ecosystem. And you always want to work with the people who are not only care the most, but are the best qualified to solve it. And what we've discovered along the way is that this is an incredible ecosystem of collaborators in solving these problems. And we don't have to, in the IBC universe, keep redoing all the work, keep reinventing the wheel every time there's a new problem to solve. We just need to build on the work of other people and solve those problems together and just retain our interoperability with those other solutions.
Nice.
My cat's here for anybody who doesn't have the video on, but she joins for pretty much every podcast.
That's nice. No, I like that. And when I started to, like, last year, I was pretty big on Polkadot, and I was really like, man, this is the next big thing. And then I started to learn about Cosmos. Like, man, they're actually trying to resolve a similar problem, actually the same problem, but they're just starting on the other ends of the spectrum, right? And I think this kind of like democratic, like we were saying, open approach that Cosmos takes, and then potentially lead towards what's coming now with interchain security that would turn the Cosmos up potentially into something more like the Polkadot relay chain. I think this is at least an ideology that resonates more with me, because projects like Secret and Osmosis and others, they have more flexibility and also more kind of like originality in the end of the day. But yeah, man, now it's time for the Supernova is coming up later this month. I guess you have very little sleep these days heading towards it. Can you share some of the highlights that are coming with it, and what you are personally also mostly excited about?
Yeah, so Supernova is the next big mainnet upgrade, and I think we've recently made the decision that we're going to, instead of doing one major upgrade, which might take us into the end of the year, split the upgrade into two phases. So the first phase is, I think, actually the most critical phase, which is like IBC token transfers and getting a lot of that into the system. So for that, the most exciting thing, obviously, is being able to take secret around the entire Cosmos and be able to bring other Cosmos-based coins into secret itself. So I'll explain the value of each of those. Taking secret out into the Cosmos means it can be on Osmosis, it can be on Gravity Dex, it can be on all of these other platforms where there's utility across these chains for these native coins. And secret is really interesting, of course, as a coin in itself, just because it comes from a private by default network. Secret itself is not private, right? This is something also people don't get until they start to research the project a bit. Secret at the protocol level is a public coin, the same way ETH is, the same way Atom is. But you can wrap it, just like every other token in the network, into a secret token version of itself. So on our network, we have secret, and then we have secret, which is the wrapped version. And that's what's private. But that, you can create secret just through like a simple contract call. It's actually embedded in Kepler wallet itself. You can just do a quick conversion to and from and back, sort of like shielding and unshielding. So when you bring secret into other networks, we're talking about the public version of secret. But, you know, it could be a version of secret that started wrapped as secret that you unwrap into regular public by default secret and then send to Osmosis, put it in an LP pool. All of that secret is public in the LP pools. You can use it just like any other coin in the Cosmos, like in Akash or DVPN or whatever else. You can use it in all these Osmosis pools. And then you can, when you're done, withdraw it and send it back. So that's huge for liquidity for us and interoperability within these other ecosystems. Like Cosmos DEXs, Cosmos DeFi is going to be massive, you know, but it also brings us interoperability, let's say with Terra, with IBC. So now you can bring secret and secret tokens into the Terra universe. We've been working on a bridge with Terra probably for the last 3 or 4 months. And I think that Terra's integration of IBC, which they just completed, I think there's a proposal now to activate it that's currently in the voting phase. Like that's massive as well, because that brings like a real stablecoin presence into the Cosmos ecosystem, creates another level of interoperability. So all of this is massively exciting and everything compounds. It's not just what we're doing, it's what everybody's doing. Going the other way is really interesting too, though, because now if you have Atom and you bring it into secret network, it starts as public by default Atom, but we can create a wrapped secret version of Atom. So immediately, as soon as Atom comes in the network, it's the same sort of simple contract call to create secret Atom. And now secret has become a privacy solution for any chain in the Cosmos that chooses to like work with us to develop that contract to create like private versions of all of these coins. And it also means they can be used in our private DeFi ecosystem as wrapped versions of themselves. So secret Atom, secret Osmo, what have you. Like this is all now on the table. So I'm super excited, at least for that very first phase of Supernova. There's a bunch of other optimizations as well that are coming with the upgrade, right? Like these are new versions of Tendernet. So I mean, like there's a ton of performance improvements that come with it. New modules, like a fee module. So there's so much that's improving, not just for us, but for every Tendernet chain in the near future. Like I get just excited thinking about where we're going to go. But for me, the exciting part really just comes when I see, is this going to bring new users into the network? Can we go from like X unique addresses to Y unique addresses? And it's a factor of 2 or 5 or 10, just because we've added this level of interoperability. And a lot of it, you know, will also have to do with wallets like Kepler that support all of these different chains across the Cosmos universe, like being a really wonderful multi-chain wallet. I think that's going to be like sort of essential to see growth of the entire Cosmos ecosystem. And we want to collaborate with those teams as much as we can. But yeah, that's what Supernova makes me think about. It's a huge deal on both sides of the bridge.
Yeah, and I think also it kind of like adds a lot of value to all other IBC enabled chains, because like I said, now you can put them onto the secret network, and then you have privacy for those coins as well, right? So it adds a privacy level to those coins, if I understand this correctly. And also another thing is that there's also already a couple of exciting projects built on top of secret, right? Such as NFT marketplaces, couple of AMMs. I think Sienna Network, they just launched an AMM and DEX, but then Secret Swap as well. So can you talk a little bit about maybe 2 or 3 of the already existing Dapps that are running on Secret Network, and also some that are maybe coming up that you're very excited about?
So yeah, the existing Dapps and Secret, we have the same two verticals of our ecosystem as pretty much every other Web3 ecosystem. We've got DeFi on the one side, and then we've got things like more like non-fungible token focused on the other side. We started on the DeFi side because that's where there was more demand and that's where we had more adoption. So we have Secret Swap. That was the first AMM to launch in our network. I think it's done around $400 million in lifetime volume, which is, I think, pretty impressive. And then we also launched bridges to a bunch of different ecosystems like Ethereum, like Binance, Smart Chain, like Monero. Like we talked about Shinobi, there's a Bitcoin bridge in progress that will launch this month. There's all the IBC bridges that will bring more liquidity. So like we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what kind of liquidity growth is possible for Secret DeFi with Secret Swap alone. But yesterday, we're recording this on October 8th. So on October 7th, Sienna launched their Sienna Swap AMM, which is another AMM in our universe. It's got a different, incentive model. It's got different pools. It's got a different UX. And then they're going to expand into exploring lending solutions, identity solutions, like all these different essential pieces of the DeFi stack that we need for the whole ecosystem to be successful. And then there's also Shade Protocol, which is not out yet, but they're on the DeFi side. This is probably the most exciting one to me because they're building a synthetic assets platform. And the first asset is a decentralized private by default burn-based stablecoin called Silk. So right now they're on testnet and they've built out all of this functionality where you can burn any secret token to generate this native stablecoin Silk, which then you'll be able to use in Secret DeFi, use in pools, use in lending, so on and so forth. There's also like two different teams building staking derivatives for Secret. So a lot of liquidity native to Secret, and that's natively private, is about to be unlocked. That's unbelievably exciting. But as much as I'm excited about that, I've been on so many podcasts lately where I talk about the NFT side. I think, I don't want to spend too much time on it because I've talked myself out on it, but I'm like 10 to 100x more excited about what's coming on the NFT side because I actually think privacy for NFTs is far more interesting even than privacy for DeFi, and I'll explain why. So for NFTs, the idea of non-fungible tokens is that they're supposed to express ownership of something digitally, true digital scarcity, true digital ownership. But the way that NFT works now, there's no ability to protect that ownership, to have choice for the user whether they display ownership or not. It has to be public. But when something starts public by default, it has to remain public. There's no way to hide it again. You're just doxxed forever if you own a scarce NFT and people associate it back with your wallet. That's it. It's so much worse than for fungible tokens because at least, there's hundreds of millions of a coin. You own some piece of it. Nobody knows which. You own a one-of-one NFT item. Everybody knows exactly what and who that is. So for NFT ownership, privacy is even more important than private ownership of fungible tokens. But where it really gets exciting is with Secret NFTs introducing private metadata. So NFTs on Secret can have both public and private metadata. Right now, it's only public metadata for NFTs, meaning everything about the NFT is known to everyone. The art that it's supposed to be representing, provenance, all of this stuff. With private metadata, you can have a very simple use case of you're an artist. In the public metadata, you have the, very blurry or watermarked version of your image. And in the private metadata, you have something that's only viewable by the owner. Maybe it's the high resolution version of the art. Maybe it's some message from the artist to the collector. Maybe it's something that represents like the royalty or usage agreements, and it's always embedded in there. And all of this is programmable, right? It could be visible to the creator and the owner, to only to the creator, to all successive owners, right? All of this is programmable at the contract level on Secret. So the design space for NFTs is about to grow, 100 to 1,000x. And I'm really excited to see all that experimentation. The first and most critical piece of the NFT stack, I think, for any ecosystem is to have a marketplace, a place you can mint, buy, trade, sell, display NFTs. So in Secret, that first marketplace is called Stash. Stash is already on testnet. It's in an alpha testing phase. The beta testing phase is later this month. And the idea is right around Supernova is when Stash will go live on mainnet. And anybody will be able to, on mainnet, mint any Secret NFT they want with public and private metadata, with public or private ownership. They can do a public or private auction or have a fixed price sale. They can transfer, they can view, they can do whatever they want. I think people really underestimate how much functionality has already been built out for this. You can also already go to other platforms on Secret right now and mint an NFT for fun. There's a site called Secret Garden that will allow you to do it right now. It's been live for months. But the reason we haven't been pushing it is because we wanted the whole ecosystem to emerge, right? Like, why just, push somebody to create an NFT if it's not productive, if you can't do anything with it? On Secret, we really want the first NFTs to be productive NFTs. We want to show how utility is greater on Secret than in any other NFT network. So all of that is coming. There's a bunch of other NFT focused, like either on the creator side or on the platform side, stuff that's going to come before the end of the year. Some of which I am not at liberty to talk about. Some of which even I don't know what's happening. So I'm just excited. There's also an NFT profile picture project called the Anons, which is dropping on Secret Network. That's the first PFP project on Secret. All the art is done. I'm definitely going to be changing my profile picture as soon as I get my hands on one of these things, probably in a month or so. So I don't know. I'm just excited. I love when people experiment, and I love helping people experiment. And it all seems like we're moving from theory to reality very, very quickly.
No, and it's also visible, like the secret agents are really active. They're out there, they're building stuff, they're like trying to get involved and also build their own projects. And I think the Anons is a great branding these days, a good name at least. So yeah, and I think kind of like a private version of OpenSea makes a lot of sense, especially if it's also running on Tenement, which makes it faster to settle transactions and all these things. And it's also interoperable through IBC. Like this makes so much sense. Like to me, that's crystal clear that this is the next step in the evolution of crypto as a whole, right? Now we've seen all these also people that are doxed and dox their accounts and their identities because simply, they bought some NFTs and then people could figure out who they are. So it's not really like private in that sense. But yeah, you already talked a lot about bridges. Maybe before or as we wrap things up, the Supernova bridge is something that I think is really interesting because you can wrap your Bitcoin through a trustless bridge onto Secret Network, and then you can do cool things with it, right? So maybe you can share some final thoughts about this bridge, what stage it is, and what value it adds also for current Bitcoin holders that maybe are a bit frustrated on the functionalities of Bitcoin, which is currently not much.
Yeah. So, well, I think Bitcoin does exactly what it's designed to do, right? And it's up to everybody else to sort of extend that functionality. It's again the same thing. You don't, or at least I don't think you want a lot of this to happen at layer one because the value proposition of Bitcoin is it does as much as it says it does. But by accruing that value, by having that lower attack surface, by being exactly what it intends to be and nothing more, you can rely on the sustainability of its value and the sustainability of like the Bitcoin value transfer network. Like that is important. So I don't see Bitcoin as like a pet rock or anything like that, but it is a lot of the time like a valuable asset that other people need to work to unlock. So what the Shinobi team did, which again is different, like this is again like a community built project. It's not like, the central company at the heart of Secret Network built everything. Like we don't have that kind of ecosystem. We're a very decentralized ecosystem. So this is a team of anonymous developers who built out a Bitcoin bridge that's trustless, that allows you to wrap again your Bitcoin. You take native Bitcoin and now you have secret Bitcoin. It is a wrapped secret representation of the Bitcoin that you hold on the main Bitcoin network. And now it's usable in secret DeFi. So any AMM platform, for example, could introduce like a double-sided pool, secret against secret Bitcoin. You can now use your Bitcoin as an LP, or you can use your secret BTC as collateral on a lending platform, or you can bid for NFTs with your secret BTC, or you could burn your secret BTC in order to generate Silk as a stablecoin and then use the stablecoin to purchase other assets. Like the whole point is to unlock that interoperability. Or you just bridge your secret BTC, right? You trade it for secret, and then you take your secret to osmosis and buy DVPN. Everything is enabled through IBC. So this is just one more bridge, but the importance of our bridge to Bitcoin is, again, the Bitcoin enters the network trustlessly, privately. And you can't really say that for other networks where one end of the connection has to be public by default. As the only private by default smart contract platform, only we can have that sort of guarantee that as it enters the network, you're retaining that privacy, which is why we were able to successfully convert some of the Monero community into Monero bridge users. There's another big segment of the Bitcoin community that does care about privacy. They acknowledge that Bitcoin at best is like pseudonymity by default, but not privacy by default. So they're excited to take their BTC and not only have a new privacy solution, but have a new interoperability solution that also makes it a productive asset in the secret universe. And Shinobi, as far as I'm told, still is their timeline is also around Supernova. I don't think they want to launch too much before and then have to, do anything over. And I don't think they want to launch after. And as far as I'm aware, technically speaking, they're pretty ready. They've been on testnet. So very excited for this to come online and see what it unlocks for the entire cosmos.
Yeah, I think that's truly in the sense of maximizing the value and maximizing the potential of Bitcoin in the end of the day. And through IBC, there's so many opportunities. It's going to be crazy. Maybe as we're wrapping up, what are some alpha leaks that you can give? Is there anything that's coming up that you're like, man, this is what I can talk about at least? When IBC is coming, there's going to be liquidity on DEXs, this and that. Is there going to be some crazy opportunities for the community? What can you talk? What can you share with us right now?
So I know that Shade is doing their initial distribution in an airdrop fashion, and they do have airdrops for SCRT stakers, but I think they also have an airdrop for Atom stakers.
Okay.
So anybody who's staking Atom might also want to consider staking SCRT so they get a larger share of that drop. But you didn't hear that from me. And then there's the Stash marketplace. Of course, they've got alpha testing open, beta testing is coming. If people want to be a part of that alpha testing, there's probably going to be rewards for early testers, like special NFTs or something like that, you would assume. So you would go to stash with 2h's.co. The 2h's is so it says shush, so stash.co. And you can get onboarded into that alpha process. Of course, then, there'll be the opportunity to be an LP on Osmo. And for example, after IBC is enabled, so I'm sure people have their eyes on that. And if you really want the alpha, I don't always drop it on the podcast because sometimes I don't know that something's ready to share. But as soon as we know that something is ready to share, we always send it to the agents. So if you want to become a secret agent and help defend privacy for Web3 and also get cool rewards, secret and NFTs and all kinds of stuff, you go to scrt.network/agents. That's just our main website for the whole protocol. So scrt.network/agents, sign up to be an agent. You'll get sent your first mission. You'll join the Discord. It's just fun. What I love is that it's like you said, this is an incredible community. And the reason we were able to build a really awesome, successful community is because our ethos is so distinct, right? It says it right on the hat. So many blockchain layer ones is the only thing they have to say themselves versus somebody else is we're faster, or we're more decentralized, or we have more TVL, we give more money away. There's really no differentiator beyond business development and maybe some small differences in the tech. To be the only private by default smart contract network means we get to come to people with a privacy ethos and say, be part of a community who thinks like you do, who feels what you feel about privacy as a core ethos and as a human right, and then come meet each other, come build with people where you don't wonder whether they care about privacy or not. We're all here for a very similar reason. So we've been able to carve out a community that has a lot of trust in each other, that are very willing collaborators, and we know what we stand for that other blockchain ecosystems don't stand for. So it feels less mercenary, more like a family supporting a critical piece of Web3 infrastructure. And we're trying to bring that ethos now with IBC to the rest of the cosmos, and we're inviting the rest of the cosmos in as well to become a part of that core community.
Yeah, and I think cosmonauts are equally excited about it. So yeah, thank you, Tor, so much for the time to come on. I think this has been long overdue. Lastly, I think it would be great also to see you in Lisbon. Hope you can make it, or somebody from the team in the conference.
I hope so too.
November 5, November 6 would be great to have you there as well. I think privacy is one topic that we don't have right now on the agenda. So you actually have no choice. You have to come.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I would encourage everybody to go, honestly, because even beyond secret, there'll be incredible speakers from pretty much every relevant Cosmos protocol and piece of infrastructure. So it's not to be missed. Hopefully, we can get at least a couple members of our team over there, but we'll be building either way. It may coincide also with pieces of support for the Supernova launch, so we'll see. But either way, Cosmos will be our priority for the foreseeable future. We love being a part of the ecosystem, and we love being able to openly collaborate with the other projects. Lisbon's just another amazing opportunity to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's also in the spirit of Cosmos, kind of like all these projects collaborating to each other, leveraging real synergies. So yeah, really excited to track this journey as we move forward. We'll leave all the links also, of course, under this video so people can find you, and you're also active on Twitter and this and that. Thanks for coming on, and yeah, we'll keep in touch.